Hey everybody, Stacy here. Welcome back to my channel. This is not a video I wanted to make. This is about urinary calculi in goats. Urinary calculi is the development of stones in their urethra and their bladder that prevent goats from peeing, otherwise known as UC. Urinary calculi is more common in wethers, which are males that have been banded or castrated. This is Bandit, and he has a case of urinary calculi, so I wanted to talk to you guys about what the different processes are in order to address it. Dust your nose. Hey. Duncan, no. Please get. It can be deadly if not treated right away. Urinary calculi is... Stop, Rusty. Okay, we're gonna go mobile because my goats keep knocking down the tripod. Urinary calculi is a medical issue that requires immediate attention. It can be deadly if not treated as soon as possible. I first noticed Bandit not able to urinate on his own. He was posturing and there wasn't a lot of pee coming out, and I knew right away that I had to call a vet. I try to stay prepared for most medical situations when it comes to the goats. I even have a medical kit. I did a video on what I have in the medical kit, so if you guys did not watch that, go back and watch that. But I knew in this case that I needed to call a vet in order to work on Bandit. So I brought him to the emergency vet and they did a radiograph, they did an x-ray of his insides, and they noticed that there was a buildup of stones at the end of his urethra, which was good in this case because that means they were able to perform minor surgery, snip the end of his pizzle, and that should allow the bigger stones to flow out and through. So they sedated him, performed that minor operation, and sent him home, and I thought that was the end of that. The stones that came out of him during that first surgery were fairly large. The biggest one was about the size of half of a pea. Then they went down to like maybe a size of a BB, maybe half of a BB, and then a lot of them were about the size of granules of sand, and there seemed to be quite a bit of those. Bandit was fine after that minor surgery. He was able to pee, but then about a month later, I noticed that he was struggling again to urinate. So I brought him into the vet again. We got another x-ray. She could not find any other stones that were in his urethra. He was peeing fine again by the end of the night, so we figured that maybe it was just a minor blockage and he was able to excrete everything out just fine. Now fast forward a couple months later, I noticed Bandit struggling to urinate one more time. This time he was crying out. I could tell he was in pain, so I rushed him up to the emergency vet up at UF, the University of Florida. They've got a 24-hour emergency center for large animals. Bandit was seen right away, and they gave me a couple of options. Option number one was to clean out his bladder and his urethra, flush everything out, and then give him a tube that comes out of his abdomen in which the urine would come out temporarily until his urethra and his bladder rehealed and he's able to use everything like normal. Second option was to take his urethra and relocate it to the backside underneath his tail. That way, when he had to urinate, it would come out his back end. And then the third option was to fuse his bladder to the inside of his side. That way, his bladder would just permanently leak out of his side and come out here instead of having to pass through his urethra. That one sounded like it was really unnecessary at this point in time because having the bladder right here open to the outside, there's a lot of risk for infection. So I chose the first option, which seemed to be the simplest and probably have the least amount of complications later in life. So right now he's got a tube that comes out of his belly in order for urine to come out. Hey Bandit, let's see your tube. With the tube in his belly, he loses the functionality of his urethra for several weeks until we start clamping the end of it and forcing him to be able to use his urethra to urinate once again. The vet said that it is possible that during those weeks their body forgets how to use the urethra, and it may be a possibility that they have to have that tube in them permanently. So we started clamping Bandit after several weeks. You start with 1 hour a day, then you progress to 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and try to let the goat relearn how to use everything like a normal function. I was left with a lot of questions about what was causing the urinary calculi in Bandit, but it wasn't affecting my other wethers. The vet said that it could be too much alfalfa. I removed the alfalfa pellets from the diet, so now they just get a small bit of goat feed and a little bit of sunflower seeds. Their main diet is hay. Down here in Florida, I feed them coastal hay and ONA, which is orchard and alfalfa mix. There's not a lot of alfalfa in that mix, so that was safe for all the goats. I was also told that the loose minerals may not be a good idea for the goats. It's got a lot of calcium in it, that I should remove that and give them a salt block instead. So the vet recommended giving a regular Himalayan salt block and also one of those salt blocks that just has salt, iodine, and iron in it. I think it may have copper in it too, but it doesn't have any calcium. So when you're at your store looking for salt blocks for your goats, the regular salt, the Himalayan salt, they love that, and it encourages them to drink more water. So the more water they drink, the less likely they are to have those stones build up. And then the other salt has some of the minerals that the goats need in their regular diet. Another thing I did is, because I'm fairly new to this property, I had the water tested because the water might have high calcium ratio in it. However, it showed that it was actually on the low side of normal, so it wasn't the water. I couldn't figure out why Bandit had urinary calculi, what caused it. And then I remembered that at about 4 weeks old is when I banded him. You're not supposed to band or castrate your males at that young of an age because it doesn't allow their body to develop properly. Their urethra doesn't develop properly. And I do remember the vet tried to put a catheter in him, and she said that his urethra was unusually small, and that could be the issue why he's getting those stones caught. Different diets and different minerals will cause different types of urinary calculi. Bandit had stones that were made out of calcium carbonate, which are more of like a round stone, and they're kind of green and gold colored. I was thankful that they were calcium carbonate stones because the calcium carbonate are more smooth and round. There are other types of stones that can form that are more jagged and can do more damage to the insides and be more painful. The past 8 weeks have been so stressful dealing with this situation. I did start a GoFundMe for Bandit to help alleviate from those bills. Thank you so much to everybody that has donated so far, and if anybody else is feeling generous and wants to leave us anything is much appreciated. I'll leave a link in the description below. I hope that you guys never have to deal with anything like this. It's awful to have to see your loved pets go through anything like that. So hopefully this video has been educational and helpful to you guys, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.